in the dusty town of Red Willow, a place carved into the wide sweep of the western plains where the wind carried secrets through the cracks of wooden shutters and where every stranger's step echoed long in the memories of its people, there lived a woman named Clara McAllister, who moved through life with a limp that told a story no one had the patience or kindness to understand, for the town had made her limp into a mark of shame, a constant reminder that she was different, that she did not stride across the boardwalks with the same brisk certainty as the young wives or the same confident swagger as the men, but rather with a measured unevenness, one step slow, one step quick, as though the rhythm of her body had learned to dance to a tune all its own, and because of that, Red Willow, with its hard-edged laughter and quick judgments, found it easier to point, whisper, and chuckle than to ever see Clara for who she truly was, which was a woman of quiet resilience, a seamstress who could stitch beauty from scraps, who read by candlelight long after others had gone to sleep, who held within her a yearning as wide as the open prairie, though she kept it locked deep for fear of mockery, and yet on the night of the harvest dance, when lanterns swung from ropes strung between posts and music spilled from fiddles and banjos as though joy itself had been coaxed out of wood and string, Clara found herself unable to remain shut away in her small rented room, for though her heart trembled at the thought of facing the crowd, something within her, some whisper of defiance or maybe some fragile hope yet told her she deserved to stand in the glow of lantern light, to hear laughter not only as knives thrown her way but as music woven through a gathering meant for celebration, and so she dressed in the pale blue gown she had sewn herself, every stitch neat, every button placed with care. And though she saw in the mirror the curve of her shoulders bending inward, the way she always tried to make herself smaller, she forced her chin up, pinned her hair, wrapped a shawl across her arms, and stepped into the night air heavy with dust and the faint sweetness of harvest. The walk to town square was a gauntlet of memory and children who had once mocked her uneven step, women who had turned their eyes away as though she were contagious, men who had chuckled openly when she passed out but she pressed forward, heart hammering, and when she reached the circle of light, the music hit her like a wave, fiddles sharp, the thump of boots on planks, skirts swirling in colors of autumn, voices rising, laughter ringing, and all around her the press of life, yet she felt herself on the edge, as though the lanterns themselves had drawn a line between those who belonged and those who were tolerated. And she knew which side she stood on, so she found a chair in the shadows, folded her hands in her lap, and told herself she would watch a while, pretend she was invisible, and slip away before the hurt grew too sharp. But no sooner had she settled there than the whispers began again, just as she had feared, voices like nettles, "What's she doing here? And poor thing, can't hardly walk, let alone dance," and though she kept her gaze fixed on the floorboards, her ears caught every cruel note, each one pressing deeper into her chest. But then, as if the night itself had decided to shift its course, he appeared. Ethan Callahan, the cowboy whose name had only recently begun to roll off tongues in Red Willow, stepped into the circle of lantern glow with the ease of a man who carried no weight of expectation, tall in the saddle when seen from afar, broad-shouldered in close, with eyes the color of storm clouds ready to break and a jaw set in a way that made even the town's sharpest gossips hesitate before speaking, for though he was quiet, a drifter by all accounts, hired on at the Merrick Ranch for cattle work, he carried with him an air that suggested he had seen more of the world than these narrow streets and had measured people by more than their limp or their laughter, and as he moved through the crowd, his boots striking a sure rhythm, the chatter quieted, for the men measured him, and the women followed him with their eyes, curious, drawn to something steady in him, but it was Clara who felt the world tilt when his gaze swept the gathering and landed, impossibly, on her, sitting small in the shadows, her shawl drawn close as though it could shield her from the sharp edge of ridicule, for surely he could not be looking at her, surely his attention would slide past, yet he held her with his eyes as though she were the only soul there, and slowly, deliberately, he walked toward her. The whispers shifted into confusion, like the rustle of startled birds. "What's he doing?" And not her, surely, and the crueler voices tried to cover their uncertainty with laughter. "He'll regret that." Watch her stumble, and Clara felt her stomach twist with dread. for if he spoke to her now, if he did what they thought he might, it would be worse than silence, it would be humiliation played out under every eye. But Ethan stopped before her, tipped his hat with a grace that seemed born, not practiced, and in a voice deep and steady, carrying warmth without pity, he said, "Miss McAllister, would you grant me this dance?" For a heartbeat that stretched long, Clara could not breathe. Her mind screamed to refuse, to protect herself, for she imagined laughter swelling like a storm, imagined herself stumbling and falling. But when she lifted her eyes to his, she found no mockery there, only calm patience, a steady assurance that seemed to say he truly wanted nothing more than her hand in his, and though her own hand trembled, she let it rise, barely more than a whisper of skin against his palm, and in a voice soft as a breath she managed, "Yeah, broken bar, I don't dance well," to which he replied with a small smile that reached his eyes, "Then we'll dance slow. Doesn't matter how fast the music plays, only that we move together." The crowd hushed, waiting for the spectacle of her failure, but Ethan led her with such certainty that the jurors faltered before they began, and when they stepped onto the planks, the fiddles surged, wild and quick, yet Ethan matched his pace to hers, slowing the world down, steadying her with his hand firm at her waist, his steps sure, guiding, never rushing, as though the rhythm of the music bent to their choosing, and Clara, after a moment of terror, realized she was moving not awkwardly, not stumbling, but in time, in grace, because he moved with her, not against her, and for the first time in years she felt herself not as broken, not as a subject of pity or scorn, but as a woman seen, valued, beautiful beneath the lantern glow, and as the dance went on, something loosened in her chest. Tears threatened but did not fall, and she even let herself smile, a small fragile smile that grew with every step. Around them, the whispers faltered into silence, the mocking eyes softened, some turned away in shame, others watched with a kind of wonder, for the sight of Clara McAllister, the woman they had all dismissed, moving gracefully across the boards with the most confident cowboy in town, unsettled the neat order of their judgments, and though not one of them would admit it, they felt something stir, a discomfort, perhaps even a small admiration, though pride kept them still. But when the music ended and Ethan bowed slightly, still holding her hand as though she were the only partner he had wanted that night, and said with quiet sincerity, "Thank you, Miss McAllister, that was the finest dance I've had in a long while." Clara knew something in Red Willow had shifted, and though she could not yet name it, though fear and doubt still pressed close, she understood that tonight had not broken her but begun something new, a thread pulled in the tapestry of her life that would unravel into stories yet unknown, and as she let him lead her from the floor, lantern light pooling around them, she felt the eyes of Red Willow upon her, no longer laughing as they once had, but watching, waiting, and in that waiting there was power, and perhaps danger, but also the first fragile seed of change.